Hey guys, welcome to my course on how to draw mechs. In this first unit, we're going to cover perspective. And listen, perspective, linear perspective is kind of a very big topic and it could take hours and hours and hours to master. I'm going to break it down real short and simple for you, okay? And I'm going to explain why you need it. Let's take a look here. If I ask you to draw a box and your box looks like this, there's something wrong. What's wrong with it? It's not a box. It's a square, right? So that's the first problem. We want to be able to draw for this course, especially when we're talking about mechs and all that kind of stuff. You got to be able to draw boxes of varying dimensions and stuff, right? So if this is your box, first problem, this is two-dimensional. We want to bring it to 3D, okay? And if your attempt at 3D is this, that's why you're taking this course. And that's why you need this unit, because this thing here is a monstrosity, okay? We're going to go through a little bit of basics of linear perspective here. And it's not, I've got more courses that are in depth for it, but this one is going to be like the very abridged version. So hopefully it's not too fast for you. If it is, feel free to rewind and watch it again. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at for perspective is 1 point. And what does that mean? Well, it means that a couple things. That on this horizon line, something off in the distance, the horizon line, there is one vanishing point that things will go to. When do we use this? We use this when an object its flat surface is flush to us and its parallel surfaces are running towards this line. The easiest way to do this, and for me to explain it, would be, let's say I draw a square. I'm going to be drawing this box that has its surface flush to us, right? And to make this from a square into a box, I'm going to take these corners, the corners that can be viewed from this vanishing point, and bring them on back. And you know what? I think I might even do this with a ruler, just to make it a little bit cleaner for us. We're going to bring it on back there, bring it on back there, bring it on back there. You don't always have to use a ruler when drawing mechs and stuff like that. But for us right now, we're going to start with a little bit of a straight line, and then we'll get a little bit more casual with it. Okay, so right now what this is it's almost like a rectangle that's been stretched out. This rectangular box that has been stretched out to infinity, right? It goes over to the horizon line, right? So we're going to cut it. Wherever we want to cut it, we've got, let's see, we've got a vertical line here, right? We've got this vertical line going up here. So what we do is we track it back, and we're going to have a vertical line wherever we want it, how deep we want this dimension, okay? So we've got vertical lines, right? And then we're going to draw, let's see if I can just angle this a little bit better for my hand here, a horizontal line that follows this horizontal line. Okay, so I've got horizontal lines. Whenever we're drawing boxes here, you know, we've got vertical, horizontal, right? Okay, and then I'm going to come in here and kind of sketch this in. And there's my box using 1 point perspective. It's a legit box. Up here, this is not a legit box. Down here, this is a legitimate box. Okay, so what I recommend for you to do is draw a bunch of boxes all around this section of the worksheet. And even, they don't have to be squares. They don't have to be perfect squares. You could draw more of a rectangular front-facing shape, okay? Pause. Okay, so when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about, like, I'm going to grab my little toy box here or whatever and say that this is a front-facing shape, right? This box has lots of sides to it. It's a three-dimensional object. But for right now, I'm placing it like this, okay? This is the box, how it's looking to you, you're looking at the front of this, okay? Now, if it starts to go off to the side, oh, look how you can see the side, and it's starting to go back towards a vanishing point, right? So if it's straight on to you and it's flush and everything almost exactly, if I was to say draw it right here, this is almost how it would look right now, because it's sitting right in the center of this camera, right? But as soon as I move it below the vanishing or the horizon line, you start to see the top of it, like we've seen. As soon as I move it above the horizon line, you're going to see the bottom of it, right? If I move it out of center from the camera and I move it off to one side, we're going to see one side of it, right? And likewise, if I move it to the other side, we're going to see the other side of it, okay? And so that's what we're doing on this sheet here right now for 1-point perspective. We're having the main point flush to the viewer, and then everything else is kind of tapering back to that horizon line. All these parallel lines that run, because it's a nice, simple box. And once you're able to draw like a simple box, the world is your oyster, kind of, especially for when we're going to be drawing MECHS. Okay, so this is 1-point perspective. Get it, practice it, pause it right now, and just keep working at it, right? Like I want you to be able to draw these points all the way there and then start to make a shape out of it and stuff, a 3-dimensional shape, right? Practice. I'm including these worksheets. Print them off, a whole bunch of them, whatever it takes. Make sure you get this done, because after you're done 1 point, we're quickly moving on to 2-point perspective. Okay, 2-point perspective's similar but different. 2-point perspective is when this object is not flush with the viewer, but instead turned. So it's just not a flush facing item, it's turned instead, okay? So as you can see, we get one line that comes from it, right? So let's see if I can draw that. Actually, before I even do that, I'm going to put in the VP just to make it kind of clear for us. Normally, this would be for 1 point, but instead what's going to happen is I'm going to put a vanishing point over here. This will be my 1, so I'm not using this one. And I'm going to put a vanishing point over on this other side here. And this will be my 2nd vanishing point. And the reason why is because as we're looking here at this object, this line will go off to a vanishing point and this line will go off to a vanishing point. And it's going to make more sense on the screen here. So let's say, for example, the edge of my object is right here. Right there. Okay. Now, this is the top, this is the bottom of my box. I'm going to use construction lines and I'm going to pull this one to this vanishing point, the bottom, and the top to this vanishing point. And I'm going to do the same and pull this bottom and this top to this vanishing point. So it's almost similar to the 1-point perspective, but obviously we've got 2. How does this look to you? You can imagine this being a rectangle stretching off into the distance and this being a rectangle stretching off into the distance. It doesn't quite work yet as a 3-dimensional object because we haven't made some choices. What we're going to do is make the choices of how to make it a square or a box, right? So just like I've got a vertical line here, I'm going to, let's say I'll choose a vertical line here and I'll choose a vertical line here. Okay, now we can see that, this is one side to the box, this is another side to the box, right? How do I make it a 3-dimensional box? I'm going to take this top one here, drag it over to the vanishing point, and I'm going to take this top one here and drag it over to the vanishing point. Okay, now we're seeing how it could be viewed as a box. I've got my bottom, my top, outlining my top here, and doing it there, and then my bottom here, right? Nice and sketchy, but it works, right? So here's my box. You start with an initial line, take the top and bottom, and draw it off. Why do we take the top to draw it off here? Because it's below the horizon line. So if I'm looking at it from this one, where is this object going to be? Is it going to be below or above the horizon line? Well, here's the horizon line and this one's above, right? So let's say if I make it a bit of a narrow one here and make it a bit longer here, a longer rectangle type thing, right? Well, this would be drawn off to here, and this would be drawn off to here. I don't need to do these top corners because they're already above, right? And then what do I do? Well, I just fill in my shape. There we go. And now I've got this floating, fairly accurate, somewhat ugly rectangle, right? Why are we doing this? Well, we know that when we talk about MECHS, when we talk about robotics in general, all this kind of stuff, they're using these basic shape forms, right? They're not as fluid as a muscle belly or anything like that. They're not as bulbous and stuff, right? So what I want you to do is go through this 2-point sheet and draw a fair bit of shapes, you know, just like you did for 1 point up above, right? You drew a whole bunch of boxes and stuff like that. For 2 point, you're going to do the exact same thing. I want you drawing a whole bunch of boxes. Get it and get it down. And again, this is the abridged version, so I get it that it's really fast. And if it's too fast, pause this. Pause it. Don't even be fazed by that. Pause it and say, I'm confused. Rewind it and go back again, okay? Because you need to understand how to draw these basic rectangles. And I'll show you cheats later on. That'll be the next unit. But for this one, I really want you to understand the fundamentals of 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective. Okay. So just like, you know, we started off with a 1 point, we started off with a 2 point, we're going to do 3 point. We're going to have a 1 point here, 1 point here for an example, right? And we're going to do 1 point down here, a 3rd point. Okay. So let's say I have my starting corner point. This is, again, we're going to do drawing things, but this is if it's we're viewing it and it's tapering down almost like a bird's eye view in this one. Okay. So we're going to treat it like a 2 point right now. We're going to go the bottom off to the side, top off to the side, bottom or top off to the side, bottom off to that side, right? But here's where it comes in the difference. This is the biggest difference. That when we're doing these edges, instead of them being straight edges, straight vertical edges, they come from this 3rd point perspective. So let's say I come up from there and I come up from there. Well, now that is going to be, you can see the difference how it looks from 2 point to 3 point here, right? That's going to be the angled edge. Okay, so it's almost exactly, oops, I guess I need a ruler on that one. It's almost exactly like a 2 point, except for all the vertical lines are going to be tapered down to this 3rd point. And you can see here how now it's got that kind of warping effect, right, for a building. Imagine that being a transformer's foot or something. You're looking down or looking up at a mech. So here's an example. Let's say we're going to come from here. This is still the 3rd point, and we're going to draw a foot, right? And it's going to be from here. We're going to have the top going to here. The bottom stays on that profile line, like on the horizon line. This one comes off to here, stays on the horizon line, right? But now I want to have that foot coming from this point, okay? So check this out. This is how this foot might look. We would start to draw this leg or this foot, and imagine the viewers somewhere around here, and it's starting to look up at this giant bot or mech that's coming towards it and stuff, right? And that's a key point that we'll get on into later units about changing the perspective to give size and height. Because if we just draw a robot, just draw a mech, that's good. We'll learn how to draw them with their shapes and everything like that. But adding perspective into it, adding vantage point and viewpoint, giving size to it, that's what makes it realistic. Okay, guys, this is 1 point, focusing on this one here, right? This is 2 point, focusing on these 2 points. and 3-point perspective using these three. This is tough. In my other courses, sometimes I'll take an hour to teach this. I don't want you to get too wound up in it, but I want you to be able to create some simple boxes and stuff, right? So like I said before, if you have to, rewind it. I'll give you this sheet. You can print it off, practice. It's really important. In the next unit, I'm going to teach you a little bit of tricks and cheats to make this a little bit easier. But understand that with art, knowing the rules is important. And then once you get them down, you can bend and break them a little bit. Okay? So guys, your assignment here on this first unit is to know these rules. Get them good, get them down, and then move on.